And we're now live, but woefully unprepared. Mostly because we're a little bit tired. It's been a very long day, but it's been an eventful one. It's been good. Hello there, everybody. Welcome along. Bear with us a little bit because live. Oh, you can be quiet. We are going to get ourselves started properly in about 3 minutes' time. We've got one or two people who are joining us on the chat room already. Welcome, welcome. Pleasure to have you here. We are also going to dive in with some other bits and pieces. So I'm just going to open up a couple of windows because lots to talk about today. A couple of things I want to dive into before we get started in a couple of minutes' time. Number one, obviously not in the usual location. In fact, this would be the location that would be from about maybe 6-7 months ago. This was, this is my my mother's house. She is away for the week, but I do have somebody else in the house who's going to be joining me in a second on the couch of doom. So, a couple of things. Like I said, somebody has to keep an eye on you. Somebody has to keep an eye on me. A couple of things. Number one. A good friend of the show and of the chat room, and for most people who go to San Diego Comic-Con who do bump into her, Leanne D is not too well. She is and apparently has not been well for some time. We've only learnt about this. We learnt about this from her daughter, who messaged us to let us know that she's currently in hospital and currently suffering from sepsis. There are a number of treatments they're attempting to trying to help her out, but at this point she's not in a great place. I want to try and work out a way that we can kind of motivate the community that watch this show and go to San Diego Comic-Con to help. If anything, in the short term, with just hopes and prayers and best wishes, and whatever you feel that you want to contribute in terms of support. We really do hope that Leanne recovers, that she responds to treatment, and that she does get better. And get better soon. So that's what we're kind of hoping. In the slightly longer term, I do want to find out if there's a way that we can help her daughter, who obviously is going under a lot of trauma at this point, and it's going to be very hard for her. So we want to kind of help her out. But let's concentrate on a slightly short-term situation. Let's hope that Leanne gets better, and let's hope that she recovers from this very serious medical condition that she's currently in. Let's just go fingers crossed, all of us, and let's see if we can summon some kind of goodwill, because she really has not had the best of time with it. So that's what we're going to get into. So that's number one. Number two, I shared a video early last week, which was recorded by Dan Berry, and it was regarding Alan Schumer's panel at the San Diego Comic Fest. I recorded a number of panels and uploaded them to my Patreon, and to everybody who supports on Patreon, I thank you so much indeed for all of your help and support, for allowing us to do what we do on the show. Basically, I uploaded a video which was featuring a well-known Comicon or comic book historian. He's been involved with San Diego Comic-Con pretty much from the start. He's a well-known face on Comicon, or in Comicon circles. It was a spotlight panel on Sergio Aragon's, which he found out about. He felt that I was paywalling and earning from his work, which I can totally understand. At the end of the day, I bow to his regards and what his feelings are about that, and that he wanted the video taken down. That's exactly what has happened. And in future, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that any panel that we record or video, we ask the permission of the people on the panel, not just the organizers of the convention, who at that time, we did have full permission to record the panels. But at the end of the day, it's their content, and we do want to respect their wishes. We just want to apologize, and it won't happen again, and we'll do our best to try better in the future. We are going to continue to try and bring you as much content as we can. Do check out the videos, which are now all public. We've created posts about them on Saturday, and all of that has gone up. San Diego Comic Fest was an amazing event. Lots of great panels that went up, and fantastic stuff which was seen and heard at that show. Do check out the Shannon Wheeler Spotlight panel. That's very, very good. The 20 years of IDW is worth watching as well. And also the What's Wrong with Comic Books and How We Can Fix It panel, which is a bit of an explosive title, but it does the job. And it's a great panel to watch as well, because it really dives into where we are as an industry and as a fandom, and it's well worth checking out. That's all up on our Facebook, on our YouTube channel. Do check it out. All the coverage from San Diego Comic Fest from 2 weeks ago. Also from last week, we had Emerald City Comic Con. Loads of stuff up on our SoundCloud as well. Lots of interviews that have been a lot of interviews that were held at Emerald City. Do check out that SoundCloud, and also all the posts on the Convention Collective in Sandbox. Lots of people that we've spoken to. It really is worth checking out. So there we go. Right, it's 4 minutes past. We're running a little bit late, so we're just going to dive straight in. Welcome to Talkin Con, a cup of tea with Englishman in San Diego. I have my cup of tea here. Hopefully you've got your brew of choice wherever you are. We are talking primarily about a show that we attended today. We were intending, or I was thinking about doing a wrap-up episode. Do you want to join me, Paul? I want to introduce you to my co-host for today's show. This is a new face. You may have met my wife, Caroline. This is my infinitely better looking, staggeringly talented, and genuinely charismatic and a lot thinner brother, Paul. Everybody. And
on that fantastic note, I can leave.
You can
leave on a high.
Leave on a high. Well done. Yeah, congratulations. That's a screen cap. There we go. That was that was a verse. That was, yeah.
In all the shows, I think this is. I've sort of briefly joined. Didn't you? Yeah, you fleeting.
You did.
Never actually.
You did. So okay. We went to Birmingham. It was a very long day because we ended up getting up at something like 4:30 in the morning, and we then drove down to Birmingham. Got there for about 8:30 for a 9 o'clock doors open. We'll get into all of that in a second. Which was this is
I haven't turned this off yet.
Yeah, we've still got the that. Thank you very much indeed to MCM for allowing us to attend as press and for allowing us to kind of wander around and talk about getting and taking all the sights and sounds.
Photographs and the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about primarily MCM, but we are going to get into all the other convention news as well, which has taken place this week. So we're going to dive into it. It may be a slightly shorter show, but we'll see what happens. So we got down there after 3 hours sleep. It's been like
about 8:30.
Yeah, we got there for about 8:30. Got into the actual building at 9.
Yep.
Discovered actually, speaking to one of the team down at MCM, that in actual fact, that's not the standard operating procedure for MCM on a Sunday. It really was a case of they opened up an hour early, and apparently all the staff they felt it. They were a little bit, one or two were a little bit hungover, and a little bit worse for wear, but they were recovering as quick as they could. The idea was that they were priority entrance and also general admission. The general admission actually went in. Well, the priority entrance went in at 9, and the general admission went in at 10, or was it 11? I think it might have been 11,
I think it was 11.
11 o'clock. Plenty of stuff that people could see leading up to the opening up of the doors, including a pre-recorded video of Dan Harbour, who is obviously the new Hellboy. It's Hellboy Day, Hellboy weekend. So there was fan questions that have been recorded prior to the event. Now, apparently there was something, one or two people got a little bit confused, including myself.
I think something like that's easy to happen. If you think there's a name, you're going to assume.
But we thought we were going to be there, yeah. But in actual fact, it was a pre-recorded fan questions about the upcoming Hellboy movie.
Yeah.
But that was shown, and then they showed a exclusive screening of the new film Replicas, which is the new Keanu Reeves movie. Apparently went down well. It's been received well. It won't be a mammoth hit. I think it's going to be a little bit like that's what was it? The cloning. There was a transference or whatever it was called. Transcendence. Basically, there's been a couple of sci-fi films which.
Is it because they're not having a big push on it? Why do you think it's not?
I'm not sure. I think it's just
the fences.
It might be. Yeah, it might be that. Yeah, because and not only that, but it's one of those films that you kind of watch the trailer a little bit like Chain Reaction. You go, oh, that's a really good idea. Oh, you read the synopsis. That's a really good idea, and then you watch the trailer and go, yeah, that could swing and miss. But we'll see how it goes. But the reception went down well of the screening this morning. So that was Replicas that was showed. And then there was a number of others, panels that opened, went throughout the course of the day. 3 stages. So you had the main stage, which was the large stage, I'd say that was about 1,500 capacity, around that kind of size. Then you had the live stage, which is a smaller little stage, which very much like a kind of like a chat show, very much open plan.
I like the open format.
It's very good. Not only that, but they did it slightly different to how they would usually do it, where they have speakers which would just blast out the rest of the convention center, deafening vendors left, right, and center.
Yeah, that wasn't the case, was it? This time.
Yeah. Absolutely. We got 1 or 2 people jumping in on the chat room and correcting me, obviously with a lack of sleep. Andrew Dickinson, the Hellboy movie dropped a bit of a mistake with not mentioning the original artist that they took the design from, and David Harbour eventually shouted out on Twitter. So, okay, fair enough. These things happen when you're promoting a film of this size, and people will pick up on every kind of loose detail as they get ready for release. So yeah, you had the live stage. Instead of it blasting out, they kind of had slightly more contained sounds. So while it was difficult to generate any kind of atmosphere on stage because it was all kind of, the volume was lower. And obviously CJ, who's the host at MCM, he was doing his best to whip up the crowd. It wasn't easy when you can tell his DJ training, because he really wants to kind of whip up the crowd with a bit of volume first thing in the morning, and they've turned the volume down. But they had lots of
I think with tweets that could work really well, because it is something that you can walk by and see, as opposed to being drawn in by all the sound. I can see how it works both ways.
Yeah.
But that way can work really well, because even though it's open plan and you know, open to the whole floor, it does still get that sort of intimate chat feel.
Sure.
With the way the speakers were set, so it can work.
And some good guests as
It
well.
needs to be tweaked.
First guest was the voice of Mario, and Luigi, and that was great, because they did have a number of the voiceover talents. That's something that MCM have been doing over the last 12, 18 months. That kind of encouraging doing the voiceover talent element. That's voiceover, and also the D&D, the kind of the tabletop gaming. They've really kind of leaned into that, as well as the Comic Village, but we'll get into that in a second. Neil Patel is watching. I went there yesterday. People were having a good time. Comic Village was all right. There's still some things they need to get sorted. Right, now the thing about Paul attending MCM, that was his first MCM show, I believe.
Yes.
So, as someone that was just attending this show for the first time and unfiltered, because obviously you've not attended many Comic-Cons, so you were attending it more as an interested punter. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on MCM?
That's an odd one. It's an odd one in the sense of, I'd like to say that it was really exciting to me. There are a lot of different elements that I like to see, and walking around and looking at what they have, I was interested to see it. But it struck me that there's different levels, because there are a lot of people who are respected artists, who a lot of people don't necessarily know, and there are a lot of people there who are there for their sort of fun element of the show as well. Where obviously you've got your cosplay and that type of thing, and then you've got the sort of retail side of it as well. And because it's mixed, you get a feeling of these sort of different levels. So when you're walking around, you get one area that sort of seems really focused and a lot of attention, and then other areas that are just sort of off to the side a little bit. And it was not an even mix for me. But what I did find is that every area that I went to was interesting for a different reason.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Is that, do you think, because there's one team running all of the content? To explain the MCM brand and the way that they organize, to be honest, it is very much split to everything else and Comic Village. Comic Village is very much its own little.
So that is kind of how it's.
Yeah, but even within, okay, if we leave Comic Village out for a second, because that's a whole other animal, and we will get into that. The rest of the show. So if we went anime, if we looked at cosplay, if we looked at the retailers section, if we looked at the there wasn't so much in terms of content generators. So for example, at the larger shows you would have had Marvel or DC, or you would have had 20th Century Fox or Paramount, those, or Universal. Those have showed up at say for example London. This was more retailer.
Right.
There was lots of retailer stalls, and it was lots of stalls.
And that's not
the standard. No,
right.
That is a difference between the satellite shows, the Birmingham's, Manchester, whatever, Scotland, and London, which is a lot bigger and needs more content to fill the gaps. So there was a lot more retailer stuff. Did you feel that the retailer stuff overpowered, the kind of gimme money kind of element overpowered what you actually saw in terms of what was interesting?
Well, yeah, I think you have to say that. Definitely. Some
did it feel like a money grab?
Well, some definitely have brought that with the sort of the pro retail aspect of things, and you can see how they've got this almost like a slick way of doing things and doing a sale. Other areas in the retail section were more the, would you call them sort of a mom and pop sort of situation going on?
Okay.
Because you had those areas where it'd be like, obviously when it comes to the comics, you've got the vintage comic books, and you've got all that.
That was good to see.
I like that. There's lots of different elements there. But then you also had areas that were selling vintage collectible toy and such, but they didn't seem to have that sort of veneer of like a pro retailer. These are the mom and pop style stores. And then you have the retail element as well, mixed in with all the cosplay people walking around and everything else. So when you're saying that normally there would be a more bigger element from the likes of a Marvel or
a brand bringing something to showcase. Yeah.
Oh, right.
So there we go. Thank you, Andrew. I'd like to see the pictures from yesterday. We took a number of pictures as well, so we are going to be a few. So we're going to get those up in the next couple of days. We're also going to upload the Felicia Day panel, which audio only, but we will get that up this evening because they wouldn't allow us to video the panel, but lots of stuff. Hello, Shane. Welcome along.
Shane, you're absolutely right. I've just read your comment. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not going to repeat it because it's just see what else. Omaha is priority access for press, or is it something anyone can pay extra for? No, as press, we weren't allowed any extra entry in terms of we couldn't get in before 9 o'clock. We went in with the priority entrance.
Yeah.
We were able to get in earlier than standard entry, but we weren't able to get in, say, half an hour before to have a look at the floor before the doors opened. We went in with the priority access attendees. So there we go. Betsy Woodin, morning from Alaska. Hello there. Oh, another thing as well, very quickly. I know that we are doing the slight changes of time for the North American audience. We are returning to 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT next weekend because our clocks go forward next weekend. Yeah. So we're back to normal. Sorry for everybody who's slightly kerfuffled with their Sundays. Sorry about that. So, kerfuffled, that's the word I went for. That's the word I went for. Okay, and as you can tell, we're now getting to the point where the sun is dropping as well. So we may turn the light on.
We'll probably do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
I'll do that now.
Okay then. What I felt about the retail section or the way that the floor was put together, I do like the Reed Pop influence on MCM in that they have really made a very slick presentation of what MCM is now. It is a show which is incredibly well branded. It's very clean. It's very determined where areas are. And it's a very slick affair. That's the American MCM kind of influence. And it's something that is now starting to bleed into a number of other shows as that trickles down to other events here in the UK. So there's very much that razzmatazz and kind of slick presentation, which MCM have brought, to, Reed Pop have brought to the MCM brand. I also quite liked the variety of the retailers that had come. Like I say, I loved to see vintage comic and comic retailers. I think there were 2 or 3 that I spotted. Including one which was very happy to show me that there was a Spider-Man, the final chapter, 9.0 slabbed at something like 470 odd.
Oh yeah, he was impressed with himself.
Yeah, that was one of those tasty ones. You know, the Spider-Man holding up the whole story where he's holding up the machinery while he contemplates why he needs to get up. It's kind of like reflected in Spider-Man Homecoming. If you don't know the comic, it's an iconic Jack Kirby. I think it's Kirby. I'm sure I've got that wrong. You'll correct me. Lack of sleep. Classic comic, and it was great to see that on display. And indeed, that there were 2 or 3 retailers selling comics, which was great. I felt that in places we were back to old school Reed Pop, that we were filling some of the Ditko. Thank you, Steve Ditko. Of course it was. That is so embarrassing. That is so embarrassing.
They're not 100% though. There's a question mark.
No. Sure? It's Steve Ditko. Okay. It is Steve Ditko. Back to a little bit of MCM influence before Reed Pop, in that they did fill 1 or 2 of the brand the booths with retailers that I would not consider a Comicon. There was some stuff in there that you just went, that is no kind of. Yeah, I know, Shane. I'm not gonna live that down. I know. There was like a cupcake manufacturer.
Yeah.
And you just go, and what has that got to do with Comicon? Everyone likes cupcakes. In that case, there should have been a chocolate fountain in the middle of it, which all the cosplayers could have dived into. Okay, that's maybe a wet dream of mine, which I've now just shared with the audience. Yeah, I don't know. It's just that little bit of slipping back to old habits. Maybe it was a case of because there were so many retailer spaces to fill. But that's possibly what was happening there. But what was available and the bits and pieces, I mean, it's a fair play to what had been organized. Every square foot had been used, which was good.
Yeah,
I thought it felt full of content.
Given the choice between having those types of retailers there and not having them there at all,
yeah,
I would rather have them to give that little bit of variety. So, I mean, this is coming from a sort of first impression, but to have a little bit of a mix there, that's fine.
I also quite liked as well. I mean, this was also reflected in the audience, which Birmingham is served by a number of cons. You've got ICE, International Comic Expo, which Shane organises, and this show, which is done by MCM. So Birmingham itself has this. The audience is there, which is very much served by a number of cons. And to be fair, usually on a Sunday, it is incredibly quiet. And there were a number of vendors and a couple of people in the Comic Village. In that first couple of hours, they were a little bit concerned about how many people were actually coming through the door. At which point we then went, we were wandering around and we saw what we saw. And we got to about, what, 2 o'clock, 1:30.
I think it might
and
have
the
been
floor,
early,
yeah, and the floor was, it was busy enough, and it was very bustling, and the energy was in the room. And I thought that was well served. It definitely, the energy which I would expect from a convention in 2019, where there is an audience to go and check.
But normally you would expect it to be sort of a big bustling thing around the.
I wouldn't have minded seeing what the Saturday was like. That, I mean, I've been told by a number of people on social media, the Saturday was very busy.
Oh,
so that would have been very hard work to get around.
Maybe that's, you know, when you speak to any of the people at the stands, and they would say, "Oh, it's really quiet." If you've had a busy day the previous day, and then you have what appears to be quiet at that moment, they're going to say, "Well, sure, compared to yesterday."
Okay.
But if it's going to pick up by 1:30, 2 o'clock, and it's Sunday, you know, people move a little slower. You know, they're not racing to the front of the line.
So whether the opening the doors at 9 o'clock was a good idea, I'm not sure. Whether it should have just been back to 10 to like give people a chance to ease into it, and also not have that lull at the beginning. Because at the end of the day, artists have to be at their tables, vendors have to open the doors. But to then stand there for an hour and a half and just be, wow, this is hard work, man. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. So it's going to be interesting to see whether this new 9 o'clock start for MCM is going to be a standard for the satellite shows, because that's tough. And you could see it in a number of vendors and a number of artists. So let's talk about that. As you know, here on this particular show, we do like to focus on the Comic Village. It's something that I am very encouraging to see MCM develop, and it's great to see them bring artists and talent to their tables. As somebody who's not been to a Comic Village or to an artist alley at a convention, what was that like to see creatives, row upon row of them? It's
that is great to see. The problem that someone like myself has is because I don't know who these people really are. I mean, yeah, you can walk up much as you would with any stand and you say, "Oh, and then what do you do?" You know, that kind of thing. It's not, I wouldn't really want to do that if I don't know their work. And I know that I would ask you, say, "Okay, well, can you tell me a little bit about this guy?" So you were my guide in that respect. But I know that you saw a couple of stands and you said things like, I don't understand why it's so quiet here, because you know, there are some people who, for want of a better word, deserve to have a bit more. Is it recognition? Would you say? I don't know. If that's
I was just going to wonder where the booklet, because I wanted to kind of.
Is it in the bag? Or?
It might be in the bag. Have a look in there, see if it's kicking around, because there are a number of names that participated and were invited as special guests at this particular show, who found themselves. Oh, thank you very much indeed. Found themselves a little bit shortchanged, and from all accounts, was actually shortchanged not just today, but across the weekend. I mean, we're talking people like Ron Mars, who is a name comic artist. We're also talking people like I can never pronounce his surname, Michael Dialanis, who is known for The Woods with from Boom Studios. And I think for me, the biggest crime, and it was a crime, which is Jeff Darrow, who is just a legend. We're talking the guy who has created some incredible comics, some fantastic artwork, and had pretty much an empty table every time I saw him while I passed the Comic Village today.
Mm-hmm.
And from all accounts, talking to people on social media, it was the same on Saturday as well. It was a case of anyone who knows comics. I mean, and I'm not just talking people who just go for the Comic Village and know a number of people behind the tables who are frequent attendees of the Comic Village and would just go along. They didn't know how to treat these top-line guests. They also didn't know how to promote them, if indeed they did. There are a number of Facebook groups who follow pro-end artists, US artists, international guests, who didn't even know that these people were attending at MCM Birmingham. And that's a crime for me.
Is this essentially just a misstep?
Yes.
Or it's not intentional?
No, it's not. I don't know. It's certainly not intentional.
Yeah.
But I do think it's systemic. I think it's something that needs to be corrected by the people organizing Comic Village. Now, apparently there are some people who are being introduced to the organization of Comic Village. We've got John, who formerly did the content curation and the organization of London Super Comicon. He's been brought in by MCM. He's going to be bringing a number of the international guests, or more international guests, to across the board. Apparently he was there this weekend. I didn't get to see him, unfortunately. But considering that this lineup did have tables, I've got a picture which I will be sharing somewhere, which is basically Jeff Darrow's table. He hand drew a banner, which he then sellotaped to the front of his table, and it was a trestle table. There was no cover, and I was just sat there going, "This is not how you treat an international guest." There was no printed posters up, which they did for a number of the international guests down in London at the London show. You just didn't know. You felt that there was no support, and I suspect that if they keep doing that, they're going to lose the international guests. One comment that I saw on social media is that Jeff turned around and said that he felt that if he'd known that he was being put up in a hotel at the NEC Convention Centre, which is some distance away from Birmingham Town Centre,
mm-hmm. Yep.
Which meant he was pretty much stuck in his hotel room. He said if he'd have known that he was effectively a prisoner of the exhibition centre, he wouldn't have come. And that's a crime, because we want to see these artists. We want to see them in the flesh and get to sign our books, and we want more of them.
But again, is that the misstep? Is that just somebody going, oh, right, we just need to have that stall, and of course we need to get them a hotel, so we get them a hotel and get a... So they think, right, we've ticked that box, we've done that, that's good, we're all set, without doing essentially a finer touch, which would be, let's put it in a prime location, let's make sure that they've got all the signage put up, let's make sure people know who these people are. Obviously, I have no clue, so
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to help.
I think it would have been great
to give it a bit more gravitas, to say this is a person you need to be seeing.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously you've got your brochure
Sure.
and such to advertise
Sure.
who these people are and push that way.
Mm.
Or is it just a question of they needed to just make those slight adjustments, give them the hotel closer to a bit more of a an area where they can go
Sure.
out and see. And so again, just a misstep that they've thought they've ticked all the boxes, but in actual fact,
I think there's
been
that
done.
element of if you invite them, they will come, and that's not necessarily enough. You need to go the extra step. We've got a couple of people jumping in with some comments. MCM still possibly don't know how to treat comic creators. That Jeff Darrow and a number of these other creators would have had a huge queue all day at ICE. And yes, I think also because ICE is a pure comics convention, the people who go to ICE understand and know who these people are. The general public don't, and they need possibly educating. And the way that is done is by giving them a bit of a platform and a little bit more love, as it were. Andrew Dickinson is asking, is it the usual practice for the organizer to provide the set dressings? They did in London. They put a dedicated area for the spotlight guests. So Frank Miller and all the who else was there? It was just the lineup at London was just immense.
But what did they provide?
They provided branded tables or branded covers. They printed out pictures of their artwork and put names on. They made a bit of an effort to kind of showcase who these people were.
Great.
And also, I think certainly for London, they made a whole row of them.
Is that a big financial stretch for an organisation to do something like that? That's
no,
not to say
it's not.
Is it?
It's not bank breaking. No,
it's not. So it's not really difficult to do these things.
Sure. Super Catchick, I think part of the responsibility needs to fall on their agent booking manager if they are picky where they're staying at. Sure, I appreciate that. But I think that's also the communication between the artists, the talent, and the organization itself. I've discovered, and this has been put as a comment as well, that MCM seem to make not what I would describe as schoolboy errors, but just seem to miss the target more times than you'd expect. I think they do drop the ball with some basic communication. Something that happened when we first showed up was we had been very kindly provided with passes to go into the building, but at which point we kind of almost wandered in to a number of areas which should have been off limits to the general public.
I think that's the difference between your confidence level when you're going into an area, because you know, really, you know you're allowed to be there. You just haven't picked up your pass yet, and so with that confidence, you can go to a place and say, "No, I actually am supposed to be getting this." But you're right. Yeah, we did manage to get a little further than we probably should
have done. I think that's just down to kind of the organisation. I don't know if it was just because it was Sunday morning and everyone was just still tired.
They hadn't switched
it was just like, it was
security.
They hadn't. No, well, just also the organisers like, oh my, okay, well, people work it out, that kind of thing. No, this needs to be still a little bit more. The engine still needs to be a little bit more smoother. But anyway, I think that that was a small thing. But that's the thing. There seems to be lots of small things that MCM still don't quite nail. And certainly with Comic Village, there's a lot of things that they are doing across the board. I quite liked the fact that it's green carpet. It's very much a dedicated space. They're still sharing it with like the steampunk and whatever that thing. No, but it almost feels then that, okay, steampunk, we don't know what to do with that. Comic Village, we don't know really what to do with that. Let's put it over there. You know what I mean?
Are they two elements that are not big enough necessarily to have their own?
I think in the past, certainly MCM have had the criticism that they are more of a pop culture show rather than a Comicon. You know what I mean? So the criticism is, how can you call it a Comic-Con with no comic creators? Now, with Reed Pop's money, with their contact list, and with also their history of putting on some really good comic-based shows, they are kind of ramping up the Comic Village, but they are still, certainly on these satellite shows, not sticking the landing.
It sounds to me like MCM, it's a few tweaks away from being really good.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
So that's not. I mean, that's.
Like, I still think there's a little bit of communication possibly. That
but you can, you know, a few correct words in the right ears, and it can be really. It doesn't take that much to turn it into a fantastic sort of event, as opposed to just good. You know, you take those boxes. You just need a little bit extra to go there.
I'm just hoping though that MCM and Repop and not inviting some of these great guests to come over to the satellite shows, who are then put off from attending future MCM shows because it reflected on this first couple while it's under the Repop banner.
Do you know how they're normally handled? You were talking about their agents as being one thing, but
Mm-hmm.
are they normally handled by an individual person? Does one person handle 2, 3, 4, 5 people?
No. There's
Is there a PA?
There's a group that organises, or there's certainly there's one person, and I think that team has now grown to 2 or 3 that organise just the Comic Village, which is why it possibly felt like everything else Comic Village.
Right.
So there's
do you think there's a bit of a staffing level thing there? They just need to.
I don't think it's staffing level. I think it's just staffing education. That I think they just need to.
Well, that means
I think they need to. I mean, certainly with a number of retailers, it's a case of, okay, you told your booth number, you told your space, how much you've paid for, you told when to show up and when the doors are going to open so you can load in, and that's it. They can be left pretty much to their own devices. Artists and creatives need a little bit more love.
Yeah.
They need to be a little bit more.
It's not a stall that they set up and pull the banner and it all just comes out.
You can't just turn around and say, rock up at half an hour before, and that's that. There you go. There's your table. There's got to be a little bit more love there. There's got to be a little bit more kind of seduction of the artist, as it were. Just kind of like massaging a number of egos, perhaps. I mean, there are a number, certainly in the UK independent comics scene, that know how a Comicon works, and yes, they can rock up 10-15 minutes before, put down what they need to do, create their table, and then just do what they need to do, and they can be left alone like grown-ups. But there are some, certainly when you are spending a lot of money on an artist, they need a little bit more massaging.
That's I mean, the way you've just sort of framed that is suggesting that they don't know how to do it. It's not a question they don't know how. It's that maybe they've gone to other places, been to other events where that's been prepared for them, and so it's just an assumption on their part.
Yeah.
So it's more a question of the event just needs to be a bit more consistent in that area.
Yeah.
That's all.
So let's not dwell.
No.
Let's actually
stuck on that one a little bit.
Yeah, we did a bit. So let's actually talk about what. I mean, can you pick 3 things that you felt really stood out as the things that would, when you are referring to MCM or when you talk about MCM now? I went to this on Sunday. The 3 things that kind of jump out at you that kind of.
I'm not sure I categorize it just quite like that, because walking around, like I said, you've got those different elements. You've talked about the creators, then you talk about the retail, then you talk about the element that comes in from the cosplay side and the sort of independent scene. So for me, it's just seeing the different levels of energy.
Okay.
And that's why I said that there are some peaks and some not so high, because to see the amount of effort that people put into things like the cosplay is fantastic. I also like the fact that people don't have to necessarily put that effort in and yet still be involved.
Yeah.
So I'm liking that element there. And then you look at, as you touched on the steampunk sections, I'd go and see the amount of dedication and effort they put into that. And for it just depends on who's focusing on what as to how much love, if you want, is felt.
So I mean, are there any areas that you kind of remember that jump out at you? Any stalls that jump out at you that you remember?
Well,
any cosplay moments that kind of jumped out? I mean, I quite liked the cosplay parade that we saw at 2:30. That was good.
I wish there'd have been a bit more of an announcement on that. I would like to have positioned, because I took my camera. I like to take a few photographs. I would like to have. I'd like it if they're going to do a parade of some sort, that they have it almost staggered, not as a one whole train down, but so that they can have areas where they know they're going to stop and do kind of a pose, or so you can get those more iconic sort of shots, photograph wise. I'd like to do that. It'd be nice to have almost elements of walls of camera.
Yeah.
You can still have everybody who wants to see everything going on, but just have elements where the cameras are out with a nice little backdrop. They can all skip in and you get these more iconic shots. That would be cool. But the parade itself, Yeah, I loved it. Loved
Cool.
the whole. I love the whole element.
Okay.
Well, how do people get to that? Because there were still people in cosplay who weren't in this. I'm assuming you have to be asked, or what was the story?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah.
I like the thing at the front where the cosplay people were allowed to have photographs taken in a prose style, but that was more of a stall.
This is a stall which they're starting to show up a little bit more. Let's have a look. Was it a cosplay parade or the large UK challenge charity? That charity was involved at the back end. It was
was charity.
But I don't think the parade itself was specifically for that. I think it was more just a cosplay parade that had been organised by MCM. But no, it was at the back end. There was definitely the buckets that had been.
I guess if it was done by the charity, it wasn't made very clear.
No, it wasn't. No,
and so that would have been better. I would like to have known that to be able to say it for sure.
Andrew Dickinson, the cosplay, probably had to pre-register. Yeah, I'd understand that.
I would. Yeah,
I got that. Okay.
I like the way that they had the whole setup. You were sat down there. I liked how they'd done that. I like the fact they had the earphones.
Right. Yes. Okay. Let's I'm going to quick because I want to try and get this. We want to wrap up in in about 7 minutes. So let's make it quick. Yeah, something that they're trying to introduce in the main stage, the big room, the 1,500, 1,600 capacity room. They gave everybody headphones, very much like a silent disco. The idea being that they don't then have to blast out the PA, which would then bleed out of the tent, out of the room. And the idea being that they can keep the volume a little bit more contained and the headphones on, and people can hear what was on stage a lot clearer. Except they didn't have the volume turned up, so it was actually easier to just take the headphones off. It was a bit of a spoiled opportunity. But it's also a bit, I don't know. It sounds like I don't know, because it's a little bit like going to the cinema and being forced to put the 3D glasses on. You know, sometimes it's okay to
You're
just.
You're not going to not put the 3D glasses.
I know. But I think it was very common. It's like, oh, this is not that we can't then have a real sense of engagement with everybody else or the person.
It's just new. You don't like new.
You don't like new.
Yeah, we don't like change.
This t-shirt's 8 years old. So that haircut is at least 20. It's about 20 years long.
Yeah, it is. You had to. Yeah, went there.
Okay. So it didn't quite work.
You know why my hair is this long. You know what job I do. You know what I have to do.
Fair enough. I do. So that's that. It was something that was tried. We may see it at the other MCMs. It was basically a huge silent disco, which didn't quite work.
Could work.
Turn it up a little bit.
Tweak.
Let's have AC/DC blasted in, blood running down the ears, and that's when it's loud enough.
You need some help.
Anyway, that's number one. If I'm going to point some things that I really enjoyed, I did like the separation of areas. So you knew a definite through line. I'm a big fan of when you walk through the door of a convention, that there's a narrative, that there is, that you are you're experiencing the convention in a natural linear sense. A little bit lost at the back end because it did turn very retail heavy, and it kind of like splintered off into different retail types, and some of it was a bit mixed as well. So it was very weird. Yeah. But certainly the back end, the front end, when you start coming in, there was a definite through line to the way that the floor had been organized.
Cool pro feel, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The only way I could see that working is if they have headphones with a volume control on. Yes. So there we go. That's probably the way it is. Not in a shotgun manner where you don't know what's around the corner. Yeah, no, I don't like that, because I would prefer to have an idea of where to go. Say, for example, this event and this location, very much like most exhibition centres, where you have an outside atrium where you can kind of nip in down the corridor, as it were. You know where you're going to, what you're going to experience when you walk into a certain door. Mm-hmm. So you know where you are. So there's you kind of like jumping chapters, if you know what I mean. So I prefer there's a general through line to a convention, personally. That's what was organized here. There was definite, there was a comic village, there was the anime manga, There was the cosplay at the back corner, and it definitely had that through line to it, and it worked very well. Yeah, very good
for sure.
And the guests were perfectly fine. Felicia Day was great. I would like to have seen more guests, possibly a little bit higher profile guests, but then again, this is one of the smaller satellite shows, so
they can come, I guess.
They can. The Umbrella Academy cast were there, but it really was a case of Umbrella Academy cast, the Felicia Day, and everybody else. But maybe that's just me. Okay. Will I say it's a hit?
It's not a miss.
It's not a miss. Yeah, I'll go along with that. We'll go along with that.
There we go.
We had fun.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just sleep deprivation, but
could have had something to do with it.
It was, yeah.
I know I enjoyed it, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's our thoughts on MCM. I'd like to see again what happens at London, which I believe is the next show that's coming up, which is happening in May. Nothing happening in April in terms of UK cons that certainly I'm going to be attending. Let's talk about a couple of updates when it comes to WonderCon, which is happening next week. Lots of people are diving in on this. Aaron Neighbours is going to be joining us. We're going to be having a live report from him from WonderCon. I think Dan Berry is going to be possibly diving in on that as well. And I know that Andrew English and Andrew Dickinson, I believe, is heading. They're arriving at the Hilton. We will provide you with the room number which they're going to be staying at, so you can go along and say hi to Andrew English and Andrew Dickinson. If you also want to charge any drinks at the bar to them, I'm certain that they'll be completely appreciative of that. If you just want to kind of like, it allows them to connect with you and you to connect with them with, I don't know, the ordering of champagne, shots, I don't know. Anything you want to send up to their room as well, I think would be...
Dick move, banner.
Yeah. Dick move. In the back, man. Right. In the back. BarCon. There you go. It's BarCon.
Oh.
Okay. So, yeah.
Did that throw you off?
It just did a little bit. But plenty of stuff that's been organised and announced, which I'm really excited to see, especially with DC. Lots of panels that they're announcing for the 80 years of Batman, with panels and events that are being put on. So Dan Berry, the Hilton Bar is where a lot of the creative types hang out. Yes, but from what I've been hearing, they're not going to be hanging out so much this year because it's a little bit too busy. They may be heading to a little bit more of a kind of satellite event. Andrew Dickinson, the Saturday is sold out.
Oh,
it's big news actually, I think, for WonderCon, because we are starting to see WonderCon growing in stature, that it's getting to the point where they're actually kind of they're selling out. Absolutely. Omar Hassan, not sure you should post to YouTube telling people to commit a crime, man. True. It's a listen.
See.
Okay.
Yeah,
if I actually told you the room number, then it's a crime. But it's okay.
You implied it.
I implied it. Fair enough. Certainly, something that I'm very interested about next weekend is because obviously Marvel are bringing a lot of content to the show, including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and including Cloak and Dagger. The recent deal between Disney and Fox is a big thing, and changes are afoot. I hate the fact that Fox 2000 has been shuttered. That was something apparently that was not in the agreement when they were discussing the merger or the purchase, but that is now happening. I really don't like that, because that's a definite voice in films which is now no longer going to be represented in terms of independent films and a unique kind of voice. How that is going to be reflected in what Marvel brings next weekend is going to be interesting. And I'm hoping that the whole Fox thing is not going to kind of overshadow what Marvel bring. But lots of stuff that's been brought. Check out Valiant, because they've been announcing a lot of fresh titles as well. Certainly a couple of British titles, British creatives that have been taken on by Valiant as part of the white noise element. Dan Packnadell, Ramvi, they're all going to be now producing books under the Valiant title as kind of like a separate imprint, which is a big thing for Valiant, considering they have been up to now very much about a whole overarching universe of books. This is now a separate imprint, so that's rather cool. Super catchy. Dr. Frankenfurter is now a Disney princess. Yeah, there's plenty. You could talk about Ripley is now a Disney princess.
Oh,
you
wow.
see,
Think about it like
you just go into all of them, and it just gets nuts.
However, I really need educating on this. Karen, thanks a lot for saying that, and I appreciate you being the moral compass.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean, I personally feel that there's very real pros and cons to this deal, and I'm hoping that WonderCon is not going to be the first event where the questions of what Disney are going to be doing with Fox and vice versa are going to override what is brought in terms of content. But
it's going to take some time to iron all.
I think so. I will be paying very close attention to what is said and done at WonderCon next weekend. So that's that. Also, if you are interested in going to WonderCon next year, and that dates have been announced with the convention shifting back in date. It's apparently we are moving back to April 10th to April 12th, which I mean, the moving to March was great because WonderCon then became almost one of those conventions which kick-started the yearly convention calendar. You had your January, February, just kind of slow movement into the year, small satellite events. Then you had Emerald City Comicon and you had WonderCon really kicking off the convention calendar, certainly in North America. Now it's moving back to April, so it's the Easter weekend. So they're really kind of they're moving it back to that, and I think that it also allows them to not share with other conventions. Planet Comicon is also taking place next weekend. A number of people joining us with that. I know Super Catchick is heading to that. Looking forward. Is it Super Catchick or Sarita? Might be Sarita P who's heading to that. In that case, we are hopefully going to be getting a live report from Planet Comicon as well. So that's going to be quite a busy weekend next weekend. We are going to be having some live con floor reports as we also shift our times back. So 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. Do join us, and we'll hopefully be having live reports. Aaron Neighbours, and fingers crossed we'll have Dan Berry as well. That's going to be from WonderCon, and then we'll also have, I think it's Sarita P, who may be joining us from Planet Comicon. Fingers crossed. Let's have a look at this. Andrew Dickinson, thinking of doing Emerald City next year instead of WonderCon. Emerald City has been looking amazing. The stuff that's been coming out of that con this weekend has been absolutely incredible. It's one of the shows that is also on that radar that is bringing headlines from the comic industry and also from the entertainment industries. Instead of it being a passive show where they just show up and present content, there is actual news and updates which will then roll out into the entertainment news. So it's one of those shows that is more proactive in terms of news. Okay. And it's a great. This weekend there's been lots of stuff that's been coming out of Emerald City. It's been lots of fun. Certainly, if you've been checking out these Sci-Fi Wire live streams from their live stage, I always enjoy those. So it's been great to see some of the content that's been coming out of that. Let's have a look at this. Super catchy. If Sarita is going to Planet Comicon as well, I'd love to meet up. So yeah, we may be having a little bit of a collaboration, joining us on the show to bring us some news from that. Let's have a look at this. Sarita P, I will not take credit for Super Catchick's accomplishments. Fair enough. I appreciate that. Let's have a look at this. Dan Berry. They had some of their team last year. Oh no, this is regarding Dennis Cohen and an update on the Milestone relaunch. Yes, it's Super Catchick is going, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But you do get to see a lot of content from Emerald City on YouTube, and I think that is something that I mean, I know that a lot of convention organizers aren't necessarily enthusiastic about that they like people to go and experience the con firsthand. Yeah, sure. But having it, or at least one stage streamed, it gets some of that energy out, and it almost. Well, I think it'd be good for some interaction as well. Yeah. If you can have something. It generates. Like you get it generates interest beyond the event. Yeah. And it allows us to do our own. It allows the audience to do the marketing for you, and I think that's something that MCM need to learn as well. I think a little bit of live stream, a little bit of that going out, and
Yeah, that can only be a good thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, I understand that an organization wants to control the elements so it doesn't run wild.
Sure.
But a little bit of the independent stuff going out there is not bad.
Yeah.
Definitely not bad.
So lots of stuff that's going to be taking place, but I think that's probably the big headline about WonderCon. Obviously, that's shifting back to the April dates. Other things that people who are just talking about, we are also talking about Hotel Apocalypse. I suspect that is going to happen after WonderCon. Let's get WonderCon out of the way, and then they're going to talk about Hotel Apocalypse for San Diego. So you're looking in about 2-3 weeks' time. Who knows? I believe last year it really was like the Wednesday after WonderCon. They just dropped it, so it was quite a big thing to just suddenly roll into San Diego Comicon news. It does help for Comicon International because it keeps the conversation going on their conventions. So it does make a lot of sense. The other thing that I wanted to very quickly mention as well is something that was shared to me by Dan, and at which point I put something up on our Twitter, which was regarding Joyce Chin, who is an incredible artist who was unfortunately admitted to hospital in Chicago following an aneurysm on Friday. This was something she flew in for Emerald City and instantly was struck and then went into hospital. Apparently, this Arthur Adams, other half, was also keeping people up to date with what's happening. Still waiting on a full update. However, I put that tweet out that we wished Joyce all the very best. At which point yesterday, or no, today, very early this morning, she liked the tweet. Now, I don't know if that's Arthur Adams on her behalf or whether it's Joyce herself. So
potentially
hopefully some positive good news there.
Okay.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed that's going to be on the cards that she is recovering. And likewise, if you missed the beginning of the show, we sent all our best to Leanne D, who is not in a good shape at all. Fingers crossed that she recovers and is in better form, and hope that her and her family are bearing up in this regard. It's
get well soon.
Get well soon. Yeah, absolutely,
definitely.
Absolutely. Andrew Dickinson, Amelia Clark had two of those. I don't know what's going on about this. Yeah, Super Catchy. On Peak should give out sleeping bags as a consolation prize for those who strike out during Hotel Apocalypse. Yeah, it's. I still think. I know that we've had 1 or 2 people on the Facebook groups turning around and saying, "Why don't we use Petco Park for content?" Which is still a nightmare. No, it's not. It's unfeasible and untenable. It just doesn't work. It's too expensive. The screens don't cater. Forget it. That doesn't. But it's a lot of grass, and it's a big area.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No, just turn it into a. Let's just turn it into a campsite. You know, a little bit like, you know, when you see the zombie movies, and they create a sports center, or they create like
that always ends well.
Always ends well. Let's have tents up, and you know. Where people,
now all I can see are doors with chains on them.
And then people stamped as well, or marked on their wrist. No, okay, moving on.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just an idea. Let's have a look. Airbnb and a rental car if you strike out. Right. Very quickly. Very quickly. I know that a lot of people really do aim for the downtown, and they aim for that Magic 6, those hotels right in the downtown area of San Diego Comicon. Do look at the early birds. Do look at the hotel circle. Do look at airport circle. The hotels a little bit further out. They are serviced by those free shuttles. It takes 20 to 25 minutes to get from those hotels to downtown, and it's free. Don't dismiss them. They're good hotels. It just takes a little bit of time. You're a little bit removed from all the action, but necessarily is that a good thing or a bad thing? Sorry, you can just kind of.
If you want to get there, doesn't Uber? Can you not get a?
Yeah.
Does that work that way or not?
True.
Whenever I was over in the States, if you
I
wanted to go anywhere and do anything, you had to get a car or do anything anyway. So it's not like you're just going to walk straight out.
I have a problem with Uber. It was too easy, and I ended up using it way too much just to get from one end of San Diego to another.
Just control yourself.
Since I know, so no self-control. I know. Yes, corrected there. Thank you very much indeed, Betsy. Joyce Chin was at C2E2. That took place, in Seattle. No, in Chicago, sorry. Emerald City is in Seattle. Joyce Chin flew into Chicago for this weekend. Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. Shuttles are 24 hours. The only time it gets a little bit awkward is at the end of a Sunday, because the shuttles finish as the convention finishes, which is at what, 5, 6 o'clock. So Sunday evening can be a bit awkward.
I'm liking the healthy comments here as well.
A good 15, 20 minute walk. Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Really?
Yes. Listen.
No, I'm not saying you didn't.
Right,
I'm not
listen.
saying you weren't. I'm not saying you weren't.
Where I was staying in San Diego was at the top of the bloody hill. We had to walk, and my thighs were like tree trunks by the end of my week. I enjoyed it. It got me fit and healthy. And then I discovered In-N-Out Burgers and Carl's Jr. And In-N-Out, and then I just shot it down in flames.
Oh, we need to have a chat.
I know. Deal with it. Okay, so there we go. Dan Berry, let's have a look at this. Oh yeah, she has replied on a tweet. She can't attend the show. This is Joyce Chin. She's in hospital. I'm okay, but still in ICU for the panel. So yeah, she's awake and she's on the mend. So that's Joyce Chen. So and also, I believe Dan has stated that Leanne D, apparently she's in ICU, but she is okay. Fingers crossed. Let's see how we do with that. So there we go. Omar Hassa. Now, this is something I wanted to wrap things up on. It's one of those one last thing kind of setups.
You told me about these before.
The electric scooters.
Yeah.
In San Diego, not last weekend, just prior to it, was the first death recorded from somebody riding an electric scooter in a cosmopolitan city. And it happened in San Diego because somebody was on the scooter on the pavement and went into a tree and died. Right. I can tell you from personal experience, the wrist still kind of hurts. Okay? It's easy enough to fall off the things. If you are going to use them, be careful. Just use, I mean, the suggestion is that maybe even by July for San Diego Comicon, there may be some new rules used on these scooters. We may be seeing speed limits. Certainly at downtown, I believe they're going to limit to 8 miles an hour.
Cycle lane, maybe?
They're not going to use a cycle lane, but I think there's definitely going to be rules for using them on the sidewalks. It's going to be roads only. And you have to use you have to have a helmet. At the end of the day, that's actually in the terms and conditions. You have to use a helmet. But
you know, that's not crazy.
It's not. Here we go. There's a lawsuit pending against the scooters in the city. Yeah.
Well, it's understandable because given enough people enough time, something's going to happen.
I mean, we're talking.
But that doesn't mean you should discount everything.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking a 260% increase in the visits to the accident and emergency, which is all scooter related.
Okay, and what are the ratio of people to
use? Yeah, absolutely.
Whenever you get an increase of use of any of that kind of equipment or anything like that, there's always going to be an element that's going to have something happen.
Sure.
You can't necessarily blame it completely.
No.
It's just got to be
supercatchers. Yeah, supercatching. I wish they'd take them away during San Diego Comic-Con. They're super annoying with all that foot traffic. It's a lot of people downtown.
Well, that's an
idea. But apparently, we may be seeing some changes. If you had to go on the scooters last year, you may be seeing some changes for San Diego Comic-Con 2000.
Fun, useful, good, yes, no.
Yeah, they were all right once you got on them, and it was certainly handy to get from one quickly. Say, for example, if I wanted to do some interviews and I needed to get from one side of the town to the city to the other really quickly, jump on and
see. I'd be all over as well. Yeah,
yeah,
sure. But I wouldn't be. using them with the view of
So you're not,
people up and,
so you're not up for going off on the curbs and just ramping them off and doing kicks?
Oh, you don't do that?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not.
Oh God, I would love to see you do that.
Of course.
Are you serious?
No.
That would be amazing.
Fair enough.
One time.
Oh, okay. Right, it's coming up to 7:10 with us. Past our hour.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for watching. It's been a fun show. My brother, Paul Sultana, everybody. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fine. Seriously.
We'll go along with that. Thank you very much indeed, and thanks for coming to MCM with us.
No, that was
great.
good.
It was great to get your perspective on the show from someone who had not been to that particular event, or indeed many Comic-Cons. So you got an idea of what that was all about. So it was good. So next week we're talking WonderCon. We're talking Planet Comicon. It's all about Anaheim. It's the first show for San Diego Comic-Con International. Sorry, their first big show of the year. It is their sister show, their smaller sister show before the big event in July. But it is going to be a big event, and looking forward to seeing how WonderCon continues to grow and evolve to get to the point where it is now being talked in the same kind of breath as New York Comic Con, Emerald City, etc. Andrew English, does your brother have the same fun experience at airports, having a lovely continental surname?
You know that's random.
Random. Totally random.
Always random. Forever random.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, thank you very much indeed. Live reports next week and all the rest of the Comic-Con news. Do take care. Give your brother your Comic-Con badge. Sod off. No, it's not happening. Right, take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. I know that there's a panel that Betsy Woodson is telling me about. Sean Alexander got to do a blacklist panel at s06e23, which I'm about to watch on YouTube. Can you share me that link? I'd like to see that, because Sean is always fun, so that's good. Omar Hassa, want to talk about your views on Diamond from the What's Wrong in the Comic Industry next week? Yes, I do, because I want to talk about some of the other things that came up out of that panel. But that's more industry stuff. We'll see if we can cover it next week. Lots of stuff and lots of things taking place on next week's episode. So do join me, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT, back to our normal time next Sunday. From us to you, thank you very much indeed, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.